Anyone that follows me, if you ask them who Adam Robinson is, they're going to say something along the lines of he's bootstrapped 25 million. I've bootstrapped 3 million ARR 3 times. I've gone twice as fast with half the resources each time.
LinkedIn is your number one customer acquisition channel.
So not only is it the number one thing, it's actually the only thing. What we're talking about today, when I started posting on LinkedIn, it wasn't even a possibility. When you start posting on social media, it's hard. Once you have found your voice, you got the keys to the kingdom.
What is the single most important thing that people should know about growing their audience on LinkedIn?
Yeah, so
Hrefs Podcast.
My guest today is Adam Robinson. A few quick facts. Founder and CEO of Retention.com and RB2B, both bootstrapped with combined annual revenue of around $30 million. Is that correct? Prior to that, he bootstrapped Rubin email marketing together with his brother, which was sold for around 10 million, according to ChatGPT.
There you go.
Correct? We can rely on ChatGPT for these facts. And finally, you have over 120,000 followers on LinkedIn, which is pretty impressive audience, and which would be probably the main topic of our conversation today. Hey, Adam, how's it going?
Hi, it's great. Thanks for having me.
So yeah, let's jump right in and talk about LinkedIn, because you mentioned, I don't remember whether it was in one of your previous interviews or just in one of your LinkedIn posts, that right now for RB2B, LinkedIn is your number one customer acquisition channel. So I wonder what's the story behind that? How did it happen? When did you discover that you're getting lots of traction on LinkedIn and it's actually bringing you customers?
So it's the only thing that I'm doing right now for customer acquisition for RB2B. So not only is it the number one thing, it's actually the only thing. And the story of my journey with LinkedIn started with my other business, Retention.com, in late 2022, we were at 13 million ARR and had 6 people. And we had just discovered that big Shopify stores were like this dream customer for us. And I thought we had a unicorn on our hands. We had this very narrow ICP. There were a lot of them. It seemed to be working for everybody. It was very differentiated at the time. I mean, we have a ton of competitors now. But I thought it was go time, and how do you generate awareness in this audience? And for me, it was like there was no question that at that time and at this time, it's building up a personal social media profile, and the question was just what platform. A lot of these big Shopify stores, they were kind of more active on Twitter at the time, but LinkedIn had a much more favorable creator to user dynamic of LinkedIn users, because you got a bunch of people on there doing their job full time, looking at the feed. Only about 2% post actively. Whereas with Twitter, I mean, it might be 50, like a lot of people tweet. And it's a very mature platform in terms of the creator dynamic. So the idea was start with LinkedIn, build 10, 20,000 followers, and then figure out how to do Twitter once I had sort of built an audience over there. And that's where it started in January 2022. And this was 2 years before, it was a full year before we even thought that we should make a product for B2B, right? So it was, what we were talking about today was not even, when I started posting on LinkedIn, it wasn't even a possibility. You know what I mean? Like this whole endeavor was to try to attract Shopify store owners, or make Shopify store owners aware of our brand, and hopefully sort of flow through to book a demo on our website, right? So that's where it started.
How did you discover that it is working? Because it is so hard. Like LinkedIn, as essentially any other social platform, it wants people to post content natively and keep people within the platform. So they don't like when you add links.
Yeah.
So how did you discover that LinkedIn was actually bringing you customers?
Well, when I was trying to book demos for Shopify stores, it really wasn't doing that. So it was very difficult. And I was quite conflicted. So there were a few things that I was very conflicted about in this first, call it like year of creating content on LinkedIn. The number one thing was it wasn't actually creating visible business. It was doing a few other amazing things. Like, for example, I went from being totally unknown in the ecosystem, in our brand being totally unknown in the ecosystem, this e-commerce ecosystem, to like I would walk in a trade show and maybe not hundreds, but like tens of people would walk up to me, and I was making these little daily videos, like nothing like I do now, these short things that would get 20 likes and, a couple thousand views, which is like I'm hundreds of times more sort of like engagement now. But it was making people know who I was in the ecosystem. That was helping with, we had this great affiliate motion at the time. It was helping with partnerships. It was helping with just general credibility, helping with recruiting. We were like the hottest thing that everybody wanted to work for. But again, it wasn't like directly resulting in demos for those people, which I was conflicted about. And I think when you start, I did not have personal social media before this, right? And when you start posting on social media, it's hard. There's this term product market fit that describes sort of like the state of what you are building for in SaaS and like how much the world wants it. And it's a very hard thing for a startup to achieve product market fit. I've spent many years not having it. I've spent some time having it. I've fallen out of it. I've been all in and around product market fit, and it's hard, and it's like the holy grail, and you're working your whole life to try to achieve it and keep it. There is a very real content market fit that you need to find, and it is not easy. And you kind of know when you don't have it because you're just, you're posting out into nothingness and like nothing is happening. So I think someone, I've been at this for like 12 years or something like that. Like I'm a product and marketing person. I may be wrong about the stuff that I do in product and marketing, but at least I know why I'm making those decisions. And I was very conflicted about the fact for about the first year, I did not know why I was writing the words that I was writing. Very weird state to have to exist in, but I think you just have to keep doing it because like the point of this guy, Russell Brunson, said this, if anybody knows who he is, he started a company called ClickFunnels and, is a sort of big internet marketer. He said, starting to post on social is not about engagement and deals and dollars. It's about being one day closer to finding your voice. And then once you have found your voice, you got the keys to the kingdom. So that first year was a story of struggle, trying to figure out what the heck am I even doing? I think I'm an optimist and I could also see the potential, even though it was like a very dull light that was very, very far away. I could see the possibility of how this could be fantastic. Which kept me going and kept me dedicating a huge amount of energy towards trying to be very good at it.
You mentioned somewhere that you were maybe partially inspired by Dave Gerhardt's book, Founder Brand. Do you remember like what exactly made you want to invest in it and where the founder brand and what Dave Gerhardt promotes sits in this story of 1 year posting on LinkedIn and kind of trying to figure out your voice and content market fit?
Yeah, so that was one of a few things. There were like 2 or 3 things that were seeds that got planted. Gerhardt's book was one of them. I think everybody who is contemplating going down the road of creating founder content should read it. I think he articulates really well the argument for why founder content works. And the summary of it is most businesses were started for a reason. And usually that reason is a pretty good story. So really nailing down that story and then just telling it wherever you can, preferably where your audience lives, is just a compelling channel, and it's not, it's usually not your whole life either, right? Like it's just one thing that's kind of going on. So that's his argument for doing it. And I think, every year that goes by, everyone is spending more time on these platforms. They're getting better at capturing and keeping your attention. And I think every year that goes by, like if you take LinkedIn, for example, I don't think 5 years ago, B2B was ready for an influencer-led startup. It just wasn't, it was happening in D2C, it was happening in e-commerce, but it wasn't really, B2B wasn't ready. The feed on LinkedIn was not quite as, it's not what it is now. But every year that goes by from now on, people are spending more and more time on LinkedIn like they would have been in Instagram, years ago. So the world is getting set up for trust building through that mechanism to be more and more effective. And I'm not saying it's like the only way startups are going to get off the ground, because that's just not the case. There's like a lot of other ways for startups to get off the ground, but you will see more stories like RB2B where it's kind of like one man's marketing and like a team of 4. And look, we got to 5 million ARR in 13 months and we're sort of stuck now, which we'll talk about later, but like, that's not like one of these AI companies that got to 100 million in 13 months, but like, that's pretty good. I mean, most founders would take that. And it was just 100% a result of this. It's complicated for it all to line up, right? It's like there's an author, content, audience fit, and the audience happen to also be buyers of the product, which like all of that's very important. It's like if I were a brilliant TikTok creator, I probably wouldn't be at 5 million ARR, right? Like, because what I'm selling to that platform, there's just not that natural content platform to audience fit. And then the audience is also the consumer of the product, and they actually trust the product as much as they trust the content. Like all of that is like kind of hard to line up, but like you'll see more and more cases where that happens, because when it can happen, there's just absolutely no other marketing that could come anywhere close to the level of awareness and then trust building over time as this mechanism. It's the reason the Kardashians are billionaires. It's the reason we all know who Alex Hormozy is. It's just, it is a thing that works today. But all of that has to be aligned, right? For it to like result in what it resulted for me.
You said something that really resonated with me. I really like this quote. Personal brand works a lot faster with a lot less capital. This is very cool. I wonder what's the story behind it. I guess you tried to build kind of a company brand for retention.com, and it wasn't just taking off as fast as your personal brand took off. Well, like we explored this story of how you grew personal brand and you were quite successful. I wonder like what went wrong with building a company brand? What did you try and what didn't work?
So during that 2022 to 2023 period, I bought that big domain. Our company was called Get Emails before that, right? So like we were doing a lot of other stuff besides just getting emails for people. So I felt that like, and as we'll talk about later, some of it seems a bit gray area when you're just, being described what it is. So I wanted to have like this majorly authoritative, domain and to build a brand around.
Can you disclose the price?
It was $800,000.
Not bad.
Yeah, I mean, for a word like that, it's worth every penny. A lot of people take us very seriously. So mission accomplished there. In the initial brand building I was doing was trying to make a character out of myself, because I had this view about social media and the way LinkedIn was changing and the way, business content was changing. So that was the effort. It wasn't like I tried and failed. It was just, I was observing this as it was playing out in our own story, right? There was, even though it wasn't generating demos, everything I did, which was this really raw, authentic business content, it did like 100 times better. It did so much better and was so much more interesting than all the other business content I was looking at. These webinars other people would have, just droning on about like, oh, here's your 30% off coupon. It's like, well, here's me flying around and going to trade shows and like, creating unicorn and failing and like all this stuff. It just seemed like that was clearly, brand building of the future. I mean, this is my view, right?
Yeah.
Like I think it's just so much easier. So the core principle is social media exists so that people can connect with people. They are on social media to connect with people. They're on it all day. What is going to be the best way to build a brand for a company? It's like to create a public figure around a person and like just create these stories that all, form a brand around a person. That's my view.
So you're clearly super successful on LinkedIn. You're getting a lot of engagement. You have 120,000 followers. You have like a playbook that you're following. Let's break down this playbook. What is the single most important thing that people should know about growing their audience on LinkedIn?
Yeah. So I think there's like kind of conceptual and philosophical pillars, and then there's technical things about posting, and they're kind of like different. So philosophically, what you are doing when you are consistently posting on LinkedIn is you are creating a public figure as a PR agency would have created a public figure in the media 50 years ago, right? So what would they have done? They would have found as many different ways to form the same story about this individual in the mind of the public as they possibly could, right? Like they're literally creating this figure in the collective consciousness about somebody. So that is what you're doing when you're posting on LinkedIn, whether you realize it or not. A way that has been described in LinkedIn parlance is content pillars. All a content pillar is you just saying the same thing over and over again in many different ways. That's critically important because what is brand marketing? It's just like people seeing the same thing over and over again, right? So you need to figure out, I think on these platforms, it's very hard for people to be authentic. On Instagram, it's like the envy machine for my life is perfect and I'm the best looking and I'm skinny and I'm rich and I'm like whatever. Like LinkedIn, it's kind of like I'm smart and I'm successful and like I know everything and like I'm crushing it and like I'm the best person you could ever, do business with. So these platforms, it's kind of a status game everybody's playing. So it makes people unable to be authentic. So if you can actually be authentic and let your humanity actually shine through these platforms, it just separates you from everybody else, which I think is like the key for any media. It's like noise is what everyone is doing. And you have to, this is marketing, media, everything. It's like you have to somehow be the opposite of what everybody's doing in a way that is actually authentic to you, right? So if you combine all of that, it's like you got to come up with these content pillars that are not mainstream, that are authentic to you, and that actually resonate with your audience, which the third part is the hardest thing, and that's the content market fit, right? So, but you'll be posting on LinkedIn, months will go by, all of a sudden something will hit, and it's just 100 times more engagement than you've ever gotten. It's like, oh, that's really interesting. And like you keep posting and you try to like rework something like that post, but completely different, but like saying the same kind of thing. And if it hits again, then like, that's one of your things, right? But like, if it's not authentic to you, it's going to make you feel like shit to like keep writing about it and have people, because it's the stuff that breaks through is going to be very polarizing. You're going to have 10 or 20% of the people who hate you for it. I mean, they hate you for the very thing that all of these 80% love you for. So that's why it has to be authentic to you, because you have to be able to defend who you are, right? Like,
to die on that hill.
Yeah, exactly. So fundamentally, there is like a clarity of the message that you're going for, right? So like you're trying to very clearly, like I am a bootstrapped SaaS founder who, helps startups with their go-to-market, and I talk about mainly most of that, like future go-to-market, bootstrapping versus VC. Those are my main and work in public. Those are like my main content pillars. And to anyone that follows me, if you ask them who Adam Robinson is, they would articulate something like that. Hardly anybody knows I have 2 kids because I haven't chosen to share that with the world. A lot of people do. Hardly anybody knows what I do in my free time. If you ask them who Adam Robinson is, they're going to say something along the lines of he's bootstrapped 25 million ARR and he like works in public and talks about like marketing and go-to-market and all that kind of stuff, bootstrap versus VC. So that is a very conscious thing that I've done. Like I've created through just endless storytelling of 1,000 posts, this person who is that. And that's like part of my identity in real life, right? Like it's certainly not all of it, but like, so that's step one. It's in that is what this whole content market fit thing is. Like you've got to come up with 2 or 3 things that are authentic to you, that resonate with the market, that are not down the middle mainstream. So clearly telling that story consistently and constantly across all the channels. That's the philosophical backdrop for how you have to operate. And if you have any questions about that, I'm happy to answer them. If not, we can jump into the tactics.
No. I'm just digesting because now that you're sharing this, and I watched a few of your interviews to prepare for this. I don't think you shared, maybe I didn't watch enough of them, but I don't think you shared anything along these lines, because I understanding that with my content on LinkedIn, I'm not creating this story about myself. I'm not creating the profile. Like people know me as the CMO of Ahrefs, but that's more or less about it. Like, what do I stand for? What are my principles? What is kind of the key message? And I really like the advice that you take this topic and you keep posting about it, just like from different angles to kind of hammer it in. It reminds me, was it Mark Twain who said something along the lines, everything worth saying has already been said, but since no one was listening, it has to be said again.
Right. I love that.
Yeah. So people are very afraid of saying the same thing a couple times because, I already shared about this. Like people won't be interested. But not too many people saw what you said, because at any point in time when you like post something on social media, only a fraction of your followers see that. So. Yeah. And again, maybe they didn't even pay attention that much. So this advice of creating like a story around yourself, creating a persona that is who you are. So not a fake one, like what you believe in, because you also articulated quite well why it has to be authentic, because you'll have to defend it. That is very cool. So please continue.
So a quick story about how I actually internalized this repeat it over and over again thing. Like, as I say it, it seems like I knew this when I started. Yeah. But I did not, right? So my wife and I went to Aspen for like a few weeks during the summer, and we drove. And there's like a 16-hour drive back from Aspen to Austin that I was just doing. She flew with my kid, and I drove. I was doing it by myself. And there's this guy, Chris Walker, who writes he was like kind of like an OG. Like I've taken a lot of his tactics with like video and stuff. He's kind of like an OG guy who's been at it for years. And he figured all this stuff out himself. I was just able to look at what he was doing and take a lot of what was working and get there a lot faster. I realized this guy was literally saying the same thing like over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. He's got his pillars. He would just like get you every time, make you think it's like something totally new. That was when it occurred to me that you just have to say the same thing over and over again. And the skill is saying it in a way where people do not realize that is what you're doing, right?
Okay, let me change the topic, but a little bit. When you said that you are going to start explaining your kind of LinkedIn playbook from the philosophical concepts, I actually expected you to say something I've heard the podcast episode that you recorded with your LinkedIn coach or something. And I really like this. I saw it from a bunch of other people. Basically, the success of being kind of a writer, a content creator, a blogger comes down to a simple phrase: do cool stuff and talk about it.
That's a great way to start. I've heard Alex Hormozi say that before, actually. So there's like reporting, which I think is a really good way, especially for somebody who's in my shoes. Like, you have done a lot. You have not posted before on social media. And there's a lot of things that are unique about your journey that if you just report, it's probably interesting to a lot of people who you're kind of like the future version of themselves that they aspire to be. If you are that for a lot of people, then that content will do incredibly well. And it's a great way to get started. I think once you have an enormous amount of skill, the best content is just different types of storytelling that like reinforce this public figure you're trying to create. right? Ultimately, so like, let me give you an example. Like I could give a monthly recap post, and like a lot of them are varying degrees of cool, right? They'll do pretty well, especially because like I'm willing to share things that most people are not willing to share, like revenue levels, and we let some people go, and like all this stuff. We had a down month, like all this stuff that people aren't willing to share. What we'll do 10 times or maybe even 100 times better than that is a story about how in 2017, when I was stuck at 3 million ARR, my best friend or one of my very close friends tried to hire me for this VC-backed startup that at the time he was on the road to like being a unicorn. And when I wouldn't go quit my own startup to go work for him, he told me that he thought I wasn't ambitious enough over email, right? And he wound down his business in the same month that my business made $1 million of profit, right? That post gets 100 times the engagement of my monthly update, right? It's a little bit different than doing cool shit and talking about it. You know what I mean? So it's like the difference between documenting and reporting and then like the deeper storytelling.
Let me reframe it a little bit, because even that story that you just said, it's something that actually happened.
That's true. That's very true.
Because we can broadly separate or divide all kind of content or posts that you can share into two groups. The first group is like simply your opinion. For example, I can say, I think podcasts is like the next best channel and every SaaS company should start a podcast, blah, 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 blah. That's just my opinion. There is no story behind it. I don't share anything I've done.
Right.
Or I can say, I've been running this podcast for over a year. We recorded 30 episodes. Here are like 5 takeaways. Very simple template, very boring. But what I've noticed, and I have like a lot less followers than you do, and not that crazy performance, but still, what I've noticed is whenever I'm sharing pure opinion, it doesn't perform as well as when I have something to kind of some story or something that happened or something that I've done to prove my point.
Yep.
So that is what I'm tying to the phrase do cool stuff and talk about it. So I've been running this podcast. So instead of just saying my opinion about this podcast, I can tell a story that led to this opinion, essentially.
Totally. Can we get into some tactics about actually posting too?
Yeah.
So some things so when I started getting really good, I kind of had this format of posting that was like listicles. It was just really easy for me to write. So it's like, if you can come up with 5 or 6 supporting reasons about anything, then if you can just write that and then like have a takeaway that's sort of like, if those were sort of problems, if the takeaway is a solution, this is like another great way to get started. You know, and I think, again, deeper storytelling will always do better, but like that is like an amazing, it keeps people on the page. It's like, there's something about reading lists that people love. It like kind of reinforces, you know, your correctness in people's minds. So I recommend going back through my posts and finding some like that and just trying to emulate. In fact, pro tip here, go back through all my posts, find stuff that has over 1,000 likes, and see if you can rewrite the post with your fact pattern on top of it. If you can, it'll do really well. That machine is telling you that people loved that. So if you can make your version of that, then it's going to do really well. End pro tip. So anyway, I would start by kind of using templates like that. And there's templates floating around in LinkedIn. Like this guy, Nigel Thomas, uses a lot of templates really well. So like look at some of his stuff. But the most important part of posting on LinkedIn, by far, probably any social media for that matter, it's just different versions of it, is the hook. The hook is what is going to stop people from scrolling in the feed. And most importantly, get them to click see more to then read your post. Back in the days of print media, a journalist would spend 50% of their time on the title of the story and 50% of their time writing the article. Think about that. Why? The same reason. They're trying to get you to stop on their article. So this is the same idea for social media. On Instagram, it's like a shocking picture or whatever, or maybe it's some text, but like in LinkedIn, there's no question that if a mediocre post with a great hook will do far better than a great post with a weak hook. I work with this consultant named Alec, who you mentioned, you referenced the show before, we will not even write a post if we can't come up with the hook first. Because if you can't get a hook, then no one's going to read it and you just wasted your time. So I cannot emphasize enough how important it is. The beautiful thing is all of the super high engagement posts on LinkedIn have great hooks. You can go look through this guy, Tom Wolfe, who I had on my show last week. He's great at writing hooks. Chris Walker's great at writing hooks. Go look at my hooks. There's a few different styles of hook writing. I'll tell you some of my favorites. Number one, use as many numbers as humanly possible. LinkedIn loves numbers. Like a lot, if you were writing about something you learned from doing this podcast, and if you were able to A/B test on LinkedIn, but you can't, so you would just have to try sort of like writing something and then doing it a couple weeks later. But like, if you were like, I've recorded, if example A was, I've recorded a season of, this season of this podcast and like, this is what I've learned, right? Versus I've recorded 270 podcast episodes. They've gotten over 10,000 downloads. I've had 17 guests over 2 years. And like, here are the 7 things that I've learned. Like, I guarantee you that hook is going to get you 100 times the engagement of something like the first one that I said. So use as many numbers as possible. If you can talk about, people love money. They love, if you're making any money on this podcast, they love to hear about this. If it's generating pipeline, they love to hear about it. Leads, like whatever. People love hearing about profit and making money and like things that lead to money and like the amount of money that you're making and stuff. So use numbers is number one. Number two, LinkedIn is a professional network. So that's this first idea is a professional network, and you're trying to maximize credibility for yourself because it's a professional network, right? This other idea is you have to treat each post as though no one has ever heard of you before. So each post has to maximize the credibility of you every time. Credibility of you is a combination of the description that they can see and what you say in your hook, and those play off of each other, right? So I use, an example of me building credibility for myself is like, I've bootstrapped 3 million ARR 3 times. I've gone twice as fast with half the resources each time. Here's what made, the first, here's what made the third be 4 times as fast as the first, or something like that. A lot of people have not gone 0 to 3 million 3 times, right? The last, whatever. So, and that's using numbers, it's using dollar amounts, like it's kind of using all of the stuff. Another way to build credibility, if you have not done these crazy things that you read these hooks that other people are doing, is you can broker information, right? I spoke to 10 early stage founders over the last 4 weeks about cold outbound. Here's the 4 things they're all doing that's not working and the one thing that is, right? Who's not going to read that hook? This is like an early stage founder. Everybody's trying to figure this outbound thing out, right? So being a broker of information on LinkedIn by saying something like, I've spoken to X people, it builds a huge amount of authority and credibility.
I think I've heard somewhere that this is called either like an Oprah framework or Oprah hack. Basically, Oprah is known for interviewing other people, and this is where her kind of credibility comes from. So she invites other people and learns from them. So it's exactly what you're saying about LinkedIn. And thank you for helping me kind of strike out the bullet points that I had from the discussion. We went through hooks, we went to establish credibility. And by the way, I want to repeat the advice that you said so that people won't miss it. Post like no one knows who you are.
Yes.
This is so big because like when I first heard it in one of your interviews, I was like, oh my God, I'm not doing this. Because kind of the whole point of getting a lot of traction on your posts is that other people would discover you and follow you. But when other people are discovering your successful post and you're kind of not introducing yourself, you're not kind of including those credibility triggers for them to instantly better understand who you are and if you're worth following, you're not going to get followers, essentially. Right. So this is so cool. And it was a huge light bulb moment for me. I was like, oh my God, I'm posting a lot of stuff without kind of properly not mentioning my credibility and not mentioning who I am. And yeah, I've been missing out quite a bit.
I'm going to say one more thing about that.
Of course.
So another important thing to keep in mind, which I did not know, there is a guy named Peter Conforti who did an analysis a year ago on my whole audience. And the crossover of audience from post to post is like 15%.
15.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So a lot lower than you would assume.
Yeah.
So that dynamic makes you realize that no matter what you post, it's not going to hit most people. And the next one's not going to hit the same people more than likely. And this other dynamic about LinkedIn is that it's not a sequential platform. So you could be seeing something that I wrote 6 months ago. It was just an absolute banger if they're trying to just like pull you into my world. Yeah. Whereas like a super fan could see something that I wrote yesterday because that's who they're using to like grade it in the first place and figure out if they're going to give it to everybody. So, that's just further reinforcement that every single post that you make, you have to maximize credibility for yourself. It just gives weight to your words, right? Like my co-founder is, she's done sales for us on these journeys, and she's been the one sales rep going 0 to 10 million ARR twice. So it's like if you're in sales at a startup and you just read that in a hook, it almost doesn't matter what else she's going to say in the post. Like you have to, like you're going to take what this woman says seriously, So yeah, maximize credibility. Pretend it's a new reader every time.
You talked a lot about hooks. You covered templates. I really like the advice to just study your best post. But for that, I have an interesting observation. I think someone might have called out this in one of your posts, but there's this cool Chrome plugin for LinkedIn called Cleo. Do you know it? It basically, it's very handy. You go to anyone's LinkedIn profile, you click on it, it scrapes all the posts, and you can sort them by how many likes they had.
Yep.
They use the time frame, so very cool. And your, top 5 posts are screenshots of someone else's tweets with short, like something like, "Do you agree?" Like, what was it?
Yeah. So I started off.
Wait. Let me ask a question in regards to that.
Yeah.
So these were your top performing posts, like literally I have here.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Founders, do you agree? And screenshot of the post. Knowing that these are your top performing posts ever, why do not I see more of that from you? So
I started out with a ghostwriter who was kind of doing a lot of tactics like this. So I think there's like, if you were trying to maximize the amount of followers that you had, if I was trying to maximize the amount of followers that I had, if I were like, I want to get to 1 million followers, I would be doing a bunch of stuff that I'm not currently doing. I'm trying to maximize the trust in like the real audience that I have within my ICP, right? If I were trying to maximize the number of followers that I had, I would be talking about work-life balance, like HR issues. Like I'd be talking about posting on LinkedIn way more than I am. I do every once in a while, but like there are these topics where, everyone who is on LinkedIn can more or less relate to them. And they're really good LinkedIn topics. The guy, Tom Wolfe, who I had on my show the week after, Alec, who's my consultant, he does a lot of super viral stuff. And it's all topics like this, right? Like,
interestingly, that's not the answer I expected.
Yeah. So long story short, I was using a ghostwriter who's just trying to build audience initially. And at that time, which was like end of 2022, early 2023, LinkedIn, no matter what they do with their algorithm, there's a way to game it. The current way you game it is you're like, I'm giving a keynote on Friday. Here are the slides. Comment YPO if you want them. And then a bunch of second and third order connections, comment YPO, and your post gets 5,000 comments and likes and like whatever else. So that's like the gimmick that currently arbitrages what is currently the algorithm so that you can, get reach on your post. That is not building trust within your ICP. I think you need to do some of that, some of the gimmick, right? But like the gimmick at that time where it was those pictures of tweets with like very short descriptions, and it was like, you know, he was doing some engagement circle stuff, which I don't do anymore, which like, I don't know if you know what that is. It's like you get 10 people with a lot of followers, they all drop posts in and comment on them, you know. But yeah, that's what that was all about.
I expected a different answer, and I expected that you would say that these kinds of posts, they get a lot of engagement, but don't bring followers. Because it's easy to just like, you see a nice phrase, you just like, or like if it is something controversial, you just write a comment, oh, like, I don't think this is the case, and you just go and scroll your feed later, but you're not interested. Who is Adam? Why should I follow him? Just like a short quote, I agree or disagree, do I like, do or not? But I guess it did gain followers, but it was like you say, it was the gimmick that worked at the time. And I really like how you're saying, if you were trying to just build a large audience, but not as focused. This is something just a few hours ago, we recorded an interview with Nathan Barry right in the studio, and he called it audience versus crowd. So if you just want a crowd of random people to follow you, you need to like do those kinds of general kind of things. Like he like not so much productivity and like life balance, but more even entertainment, where people would, oh, like this guy is funny or whatnot, and you build a large following. But if you want a focused following, if you want a certain profile of people to follow you, then you have to, like you said, craft an image of who you are, what you stand for, and what to expect from you, and not just like aspirational quotes like,
totally,
I don't know, read less, do more.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Right.
Yes. One interesting thing that I saw in one of your interviews is that you're not using ChatGPT for your LinkedIn posts.
No.
How is that? It's like the age of AI right now.
Yeah. So look, I think, you know, I'm trying to be the best. And I think, and this is art, right? Like this posting is not, I don't know how else to say it other than like the best art is not generated by AI. And I'll poach some words from Rick Rubin that I heard. He said, I believe that what I find interesting about art is the perspective of the artist that led to that art. And as far as I can tell, AI doesn't have any perspective. People may say I'm an idiot, but I think if you're trying to create the best art, AI can be a tool that you use, but it just takes an unbelievable amount of work, regardless of whether you use that as a tool. Like the idea that you could just sort of drop in, let's say, this chat transcript and have it fire you out 5 LinkedIn posts that they're just not going to do well, I'm telling you. Like they will do well if it's me in my imperfect memory reflecting on what we talked about and creating a post very much in the style that I would create with my sort of like emotional emphasis in certain places. And I'm sure there's some AI engineers sitting there saying, well, it can already do that. You're wasting your time. You're an idiot. But like, I just think AI is very good for other things aside from like trying to be the best thought leader.
I really like your example with taking this transcript of this conversation and trying to turn it into a good LinkedIn post. And like the exercise of you trying to do it versus ChatGPT trying to like with one click of a button generate those posts. There's no way ChatGPT is going to do it better than you. Just no way. And actually I had an argument, that's a funny story. I had an argument with one of my previous guests, Zach Harris from Copy.ai. He's a huge kind of advocate of AI generated content. And we had kind of a bet. We wanted to do exactly that. We took the transcript of our conversation, but I said, let's write 2 articles. You will write 2 articles with your AI prompts, AI agents, whatever, and I would hire freelancers and they would write 2 articles. So the funny thing about this story is that later we took 4 articles. We shared it with our marketing team of Hrefs. It's around like 30 people. 20 of them voted like which articles are best. And all 4 articles were shitty. Because the thing is, it wasn't me writing those articles. It wasn't him writing those articles.
Right.
it was either AI trying to understand what's going on like in our conversation, or random freelancers who are also not invested in any way. So like their content was just generic. Like you cannot do well. Like, it's what you're saying. When you're actually reflecting on a conversation and when you kind of reworking those ideas that we talked about and it sparkles something, then you can turn it into a great post. And this is my biggest pet peeve with people who are hyping up how AI will automate anything and do job for us. With one click of a button to be able to just take like a podcast and create a piece of content that would perform well without human intervention, I don't see it. But at the same time, why I'm surprised that you're not using ChatGPT or like any other tools, you said that hook is very important. And you mentioned that even back in the days, journalists were writing tons of variations of the headline before they were writing an article or advertisement. When they had like in magazines, they would, because there was a statistic like 80% of people read the headline and only 20% of people would read the actual content. So ChatGPT is pretty cool if you give it your kind of variations of the hook and say like, give me 10 more variations. I want to see what you can come up with. And it can like give you ideas which you can take, I think that angle is cool. Let me try to use that angle. So you're still not...
I mean, the way that my hook process works right now is it's very much a free-flowing brainstorming session between me, Alec, like Pete comes, and we're all like, so it's kind of like I have a substitute for AI in that regard. If I was just sitting there by myself, I probably, I don't think it's a bad idea to like show me other ways that this hook might be expressed that are like more punchy or whatever.
Okay, so you are brainstorming with real biological intelligence,
exactly,
not
like
silicon.
Real AIs or whatever you want to call it.
Because what worked for me with my LinkedIn posts is I have the custom GPT where I ask it, I quickly write a draft and I say, create me 2 versions. One is just a polished version of my draft, because it also helps me because I'm not a native speaker, so I might phrase things awkwardly. And I say, just polish the wording, like make it sound like a person kind of more fluent in English. And another version, I'm telling it kind of take a more kind of controversial stance, like that I'm like very opinionated about this and that I'm very kind of almost trying to rage bait people. So what would you do? And then I look at both versions, kind of the polished version of my post and kind of the more kind of aggressive
inflammatory,
one.
Right?
Yeah, and I'm trying to balance. I'm picking kind of nice phrases and nice hooks between the two, and I do kind of a mix of that. It's still my story. It's still kind of my voice. I'm just kind of polishing how I present it. And for me, it has been working well. I do think when I look at my initial draft and what I get from this exercise with ChatGPT, I think it becomes better. But again, I'm not a native speaker, so here I'm getting a lot of help from AI.
Yeah,
definitely.
And that's really interesting. I mean, maybe I should be doing that too. But like, that's not, when people say, that's different than having ChatGPT just write.
One click,
one click that's output. Still, it's starting with your perspective, right? So going back to Rick Rubin's thing, right? Like it's starting with your individuality and humanity. And then you're trying to use AI to amplify that. And I think that's, in a bunch of use cases, the best use case for AI, right? It's like not, it's like in B2B, I think it arrived and everybody was like, AI SDRs are going to replace SDRs. And I don't think AI SDRs have replaced one SDR. I think like spam filters have made it harder for SDRs, but I don't think anybody who's used those things has been like, this is a home run. And it should be. I mean, it's amazing what they can do, but there's just something wrong with it,
Yeah, I don't want to talk too much about AI, but I have like a funny story to close this off. I was on a demo call with one kind of AI SDR software. I won't name the names. But basically, they were showing me how their AI can analyze the prospect and blah, blah, blah. And I said, show me my profile. You're on a call with me.
Yeah.
You probably used your software on me. Show me what you got from it. And the lady was like, we used it on the background, but we think that on a real conversation, it's different. Basically, they didn't use their own software on me. And that was telling me something about it. So let's close the topic of AI. Let's talk about a few more gimmicks. You mentioned comment to get something hack.
That's what we're in April of 2025. There's no question that is the gimmick du jour.
Yeah.
You got a document, you write some great hook about it, you say, you write a post and it's like, PS, comment, and it's something coy will get people to comment anymore.
So I wanted to ask you about two more things. So first of all, there was a post by someone who analyzed your LinkedIn strategies, and he calculated that you average 36 posts per month. And there was another thing where you reply a lot of comments on your posts. So when people comment, you reply their comments. So I want to discuss two things in that regard. First of all, there's this kind of when you're jeopardizing your own posts, like when you post too much, aren't you throttling kind of the performance of your post? Like what is the best frequency?
Yeah.
And the second one, again, how much do you need to interact with people who comment on your posts?
So that was a thing, I get a lot of comments, and replying to people's comments is actually much easier. So, time is a big issue. If somebody's like, where do I start on LinkedIn? It's like, there's no question that if you were to actually read and provide meaningful comments on like 10 people's posts who are influential in your ecosystem over the course of several months, you would form a relationship with them, which is very important. And they'd start seeing your stuff, and it's just a very good thing to do. I was trying to do a very unscalable, these people are taking the time to comment on my post, I'm going to actually write something meaningful back. And I still like that idea. I just, I had a kid in September, and I just have not given the time to every single post replying to every single comment. Part of the reason I think why is because I've just been seeing more and more people use these AI comment generators. And it's just very frustrating to me. It's like I'm taking the time to go through and do this like a real human being, and like the same 15 people are just like, pasting like whatever it is on my thing. So it's I don't know. But my idea there was, this is in the same way that like me being very authentic and putting video out there is in a systematic way at scale, creating this personal connection. Me actually taking the time to write meaningful comments is doing the same thing. So that was my view then. I still have it. I don't know how much, people will be like, oh yeah, if you comment at least 5 comments in the first 30 minutes, it'll help the post 30%. I don't know if anyone actually knows that. The only thing that I've heard from LinkedIn indirectly, not from product people, is that like second and third degree connections commenting on your post is what it likes more than anything, which is a very interesting thing. Not first degree connections. Second and third degree connections, because first degree connections might just be commenting to be nice, or they like you, or like whatever. But if it makes it into that second and third degree, LinkedIn really loves that.
Essentially, people who don't know you.
Yeah, and that's a reason why the slide bait, right, the document bait works so well right now, because that's what it wants more than anything.
You mentioned something very important that I forgot to discuss when we were discussing founder brand. You mentioned that on the topic of video, because you post quite a few videos on LinkedIn, and you said that video is the quickest way to get people to know you and build trust. And tell me more about that. Like, how come these stories that you're sharing, like all the personal stories, all the vulnerabilities, are not as good as like creating videos?
Well, I think that they're better in some ways. So the deep storytelling, I think, is just like, let's take a step back. LinkedIn has a little video thing they're trying to push out in their app that's like TikTok. I'm not talking about that. I don't really like it. I don't think it drives likes, comments. It doesn't appear to me that it's targeted within your ICP. Maybe they're trying to get a little bit better. But like, I'm not creating video for that right now. So if you're not creating video for that, then LinkedIn is a text platform, full stop. The strength of the post, the strength of the video will be entirely determined by the strength of your text post. And the video is just a nice append that gives people another medium to connect to you in a deeper way. I think the type of video I make actually even deprioritizes. Like if I know I have a real banger of a post, we don't even do a video because the text on its own flies. I don't know why. Maybe it's because like if you watch a whole video, then like you're less likely to like comment or like or whatever. But what I do think is amazing about video, it's like text is one thing, then like your voice is a deeper layer of connection than that, right? Podcasting. Like if you sit there and listen to Joe Rogan talk to 100 people, you feel like you're boys with Joe Rogan. It would be hard to see Joe Rogan and not walk up to him and start talking to him. Like, I thought it was the craziest thing. Like, I'd go to these marketing trade shows after I've been posting for 6 months in the B2B world, and people would come up and talk to me and not even say their name, right? Like people I'd never seen before. And it's because they were just watching, like a video of me earlier that day and just felt like we were talking yesterday about this issue that they cared about. So in a similar way that like voice is one level deeper than text, video is just like the whole thing. And you can be good on video and you can be not good on video. I don't think you necessarily have to be attractive to be good on video, although it helps. There are a lot of, not a lot, but like there is a way to be behind the camera that some people becomes very naturally. It did not come very naturally to me. I have been working at this for a long time. But if you have that and you get comfortable behind the camera and this machine is just pushing, it's like people are suckers for faces, right? Like you really, micro gestures and like it really makes, if you can, I just had this thing when I started doing this, it's like, if you can get people to listen to you about anything for a long period of time, they will either hate you or they will start agreeing with you, right? Like there's not really that much of an in-between, or they just stop listening, right? So, LinkedIn less so, but like it's set up to be a vehicle to doing that. But it starts with the text posts for sure.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It's fascinating how well video works for developing relationship with people who you have never seen. Even with you, when I met you today at this studio, I didn't feel like this is kind of our first interaction, because to prepare for this interview, I watched quite a few of your previous videos.
Totally.
And I didn't feel like we're starting conversation from scratch.
Right.
I was like, we're already in the process of conversation, at least in my head. Mm-hmm. And yeah, like this is one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast. And yeah, I do feel that with some people that I meet who listen to my to those interviews, to HR's podcast, they also feel this way about me.
Yes.
And yeah, this is very cool to be able to develop like those kinds of relationships and this kind of trust. And yeah, you don't get this just from text posts, no matter how vulnerable you are and what kind of stories you're sharing. Yeah, the connection on video is just like a lot deeper.
Yeah, and so like I'm thinking of these two different Paul Graham's blog posts, the founder of YC. He's got an amazing series of like hundreds of blog posts. I've read a lot of them. But then I love this podcast called The Founders Podcast that this guy, David Senra, runs. And he's a one-man show. He reads autobiographies of business people, athletes, artists, and then he gives his 1 hour take, and his delivery is incredible. It's just an unbelievable show. And I've listened to like 100 episodes of it. If I saw Paul Graham, first of all, I'm not even sure I'd recognize him.
Yeah.
And second of all, the emotion that I would feel is, even though I love that work, it's just different than this dude who's been in my ear on my runs every day for the last year. Like I was hanging out with him. You know what I mean? It's like he wasn't in front of me, but like there's something about the connection of the voice that I would, if I saw that guy and I looked him up on YouTube to even just see what, I'm like, I don't know what this guy looks like. Didn't look like what I thought he did, but like I would just smile ear to ear if I saw him, you know, and I would just feel like I had so much to say to him because like he said so much to me and I haven't ever like had a chance to say anything back. I don't know.
So speaking of the hack to comment something to get slides, I got your slides.
Yeah, there you go.
I want to discuss one of them, play number 3, the Adam Robinson playbook. And you have here, except for LinkedIn posts, newsletter, your SaaS, freemium and such, you have weekly live webinar. Why the webinar? Like, why not a podcast like this one?
So I think there's something interesting about a live show. What we're doing with that is we bring guests on. So like if we're just doing this and it's recorded and it gets dropped on wherever, you know, maybe you have some avid fans, but there's some huge podcasts that like suck up, you know, what's being, you know, shown on show. It's just, I think getting podcast fans, like you talk to those My First Million guys. I had Sam Parr on my show like 3 or 4 weeks ago. He's like, man, like we've done 750 episodes, right? Like it's just, we were begging people to subscribe and follow us, like begging. We're like, dude, we've done so much work. We've made 400 episodes. Just hit review, like, whatever. So it's a really hard game. And what, you know, my thing is like, if I'm going to spend my time doing something, I want to try to be different. You know, another fundamental principle of this LinkedIn thing is like, I think people want edutainment, especially on LinkedIn. And it's like equal parts edutainment. So it's like, I think that show is entertaining because the audience interaction is so unique and spontaneous. And we call it like the pitch slap, and like the other segment's called Unfuck My Startup. And like people, you know, it's like when we had Sam Parr, the guy from My First Million on, it's like a guy showed his landing page and Sam just like ripped him, like absolutely destroyed the guy. You know, like you never would have, and that's just amusing. You know, he's like apologizing for how much he's crushing this guy because his landing page makes no sense, you know? And there's just something special about live media. So that's why I'm doing it.
That is great to know. Yeah. Adam, thanks a lot for the conversation. Thanks a lot for taking the time. It's been awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot for sticking till the very end of this episode. I guess that means you enjoyed it, right? Because if you did, I have to ask you to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Or maybe click the follow button if you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify. Not sure if you know this, but subscriptions and follows are the strongest signal for these platforms to show this piece of content to more people. So I would really appreciate it if you would follow and subscribe. Thanks in advance, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.